Ladies and gents, welcome back. It is wonderful to have you here. Today I bring you my first bookshelf tour. Yes, it is time for one of those classic booktube videos, a bookshelf tour. Today's video will be the last video with this particular backdrop because I'm moving soon, so this is all getting packed away in the next few days. I also thought doing a bookshelf tour as my last video with this particular backdrop would be a good idea so I can remember what my bookcases looked like when I started making booktube videos. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. So I thought I'd start with a shelf that you never see in any of my videos because it's too high up. So this is the very top of the first bookcase, which is behind me, and here I store all my behind the scenes film books and a Game of Thrones puzzle book, because why not? These are the Game of Thrones storyboards for seasons 1 to 4, and these little figures here my grandmother got me and I'm just too connected to them to throw them away. Moving along slightly, we have The World of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, which I read for my June TBR, I believe, and that was really interesting. This is a photography book of photography from the wilds of Africa, and this is the behind the scenes of The Hobbit, which is also really interesting. This little Hulk figure, which you can see just in the corner here, he was from a Loot Crate. If anyone remembers Loot Crate, they were a geek subscription box back in the day. I don't know if they're still operating. The Captain America Hail Hydra pin also came from there, and I keep it just because it's quite pretty and I don't know if you can get it anywhere else. This is a blank bullet journal, which I'll be starting next year for my reading journal next year, and there's just this brilliant sticker on it which I got from Redbubble because I thought it was amazing, and it says, "There's a million books I haven't read yet, but just you wait." I thought that was quite fitting. Here we have a little Groot, who's also a bobblehead, standard pop figure. I do believe he actually came in a Loot Crate as well. And then along the bottom here I've got Stormbreaker from Endgame and Doctor Strange's eye, whose name currently escapes me. They were gifts from a very good friend of mine. Along here, just behind everything, are comic books that I was collecting when I was in college, but I stopped collecting the series when I moved to uni because I just didn't have time. But they are Avengers Universe, this is Wolverine and Deadpool, and then just along there you've got the X-Men series. So those are all comic books which I was collecting in college. Moving along a little bit more here, we're still on the top shelf. This little Wolverine figure a friend gave me for my birthday, and he's really heavy despite how small he is because he's just made of pure metal. Behind you've got a spoon which came in my first ever Fairy Loot box because I honestly had no idea where else to put it. We've got Captain America's shield, which kind of doubles up as a fidget spinner. That's quite entertaining on days when you're bored. And we have this Deadpool figure here, which also came from a Loot Crate. These books I've had since I was like a child. This one is like a really old illustrated stories of the myths and legends from Greek mythology and Roman mythology. It is written for children, but the pictures are quite creepy, so don't really recommend that one. And I don't know if anyone knows about the Asterix comic series, but this was a really old comic series that I used to read as a child, and I just love it, really. Moving on to the last little section on this top bit here, we've got more kind of behind the scenes books, but not really to do with film. This is probably the biggest book I own, and it's like the ultimate Star Wars guide. I've read some of it, but not all of it, but this covers pretty much everything in the Star Wars universe. Then we have the Force Awakens visual dictionary, which was alright. Star Wars Where's the Wookiee is entertaining on a dull night. And then we also have Star Wars The Complete Visual Dictionary. My Marvel encyclopedia, which always comes in handy when I'm having a debate about Marvel with my friends. This is actually a comic book, so it's the Return of the Jedi comic book version, and it's got some brilliant artwork, this one. The superhero guide here, so this contains all the information you need about just specific Marvel characters that are part of the Avengers, whether that's the standard Avengers, new Avengers, or young Avengers. And then we have the DC comic books one, year by year, updated edition, but I think this is from 2017, so this is actually quite out of date. We have the lovely tea strainer from Fairy Loot, and I'm still not quite over this posh tea thing yet. Here, a little R2-D2 speaker. At the back, you've got these Star Wars postcards where it's basically Darth Vader trying to be a dad to Princess Leia, and I just thought that was hilarious. This is the first square that we have in the first bookshelf, and this is where I keep the Inheritance Cycle and the little Aragon novella that we have here. And this is probably one of the oldest books that I own. And it's basically, it's like a little course book. It's quite interesting, working with dragons, a course in dragonology. So if you go through the whole book and if you actually do all the exercises, you do actually get a little certificate which says you're certified in dragonology. Here we have this gorgeous little thing. This is actually an ear cuff, so it like sits on the edge of your ear and it looks like you've got a dragon hugging your ear. It is really uncomfortable to wear though, that's why it's on my bookshelf and not on my ear. I also keep the Starless Sea patch here, and here are possibly my two favourite magnets of all time. These come from the Anne Stokes collection, if you were wondering where they came from, and it's basically you've got a woman and a dragon and a little egg there. So this is kind of like the dragon themed shelf, complete with masquerade masks. So this is the second shelf along in like the first sort of case, and I'm just going to move that out the way. Here we have the ACOTAR series. So here we have, you know, A Court of Thorns and Roses, Court of Mist and Fury, Court of Rings and Ruin, and A Court of Frost and Starlight. I wasn't particularly a massive fan of A Court of Frost and Starlight. These two art pieces you see on the side are done by an independent artist whose name currently escapes me, but I'll try and find their name. And they're basically just like tailed foxes here. I got these from a little festival that happens in London about twice a year called Hyper Japan. And then I just have these two candles. So this is like the third shelf along on the first bookcase. Here we just have the complete tales of H.P. Lovecraft, which I'm currently making my way through. These are really interesting. If you're into cosmic horror and you're into fear of the unknown, then I really do recommend the complete tales of H.P. Lovecraft. I'm currently reading The Colour of Space, the complete Grimm's fairy tales, and these little decoration bits, I thought they kind of fitted the whole aesthetic of this shelf. And here we have just a little candle. So here we have my Lord of the Rings shelf, which is a little bit bare at the moment because two of the books that normally stand on either side are currently on loan to a friend of mine. But my favourite item on this shelf is hands down my little Balrog here. I say little, he's one of those like medium-sized pop figures and he's just very pretty and I really like him, and I think the Balrog is really underrated. And he just stands guarding the main book series here. So we've got The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and Return of the King. These covers are really old. I've had them for absolute years, and I don't know if you can get these covers anymore, but I like them because they're just different from all the others that I saw. At the bottom here, we have pictures by J.R.R. Tolkien. This has got all of Tolkien's like original designs in it for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And on the side here, we just have some Fairy Loot tarot cards. Okay, so here we have the first Shadowhunter shelf, and I think I've got 3 shelves in total just for the Shadowhunters books. So I started with the, what I call like the prequel series. So we have the Infernal Devices here, which in my opinion is the best trilogy of Shadowhunters books. And then here I've got the Chain of Gold. This is the first edition, collector's edition, I think, which I pre-ordered from Waterstones. So this is the UK Waterstones edition. And yeah, I enjoyed Chain of Gold. In the Wick of Times, Ash Crown candle here. And then here we do have like the extra books you get for the Shadowhunters Chronicles. So we've got the Bane Chronicles, which I absolutely loved. The Shadowhunters Codex, because every Shadowhunters reader should have a codex with them. I've read the codex cover to cover. The Midnight Air, here is actually a necklace of the Clockwork Angel that Tessa wears around her neck in the Infernal Devices, the Eldest Curses, which I absolutely adored. It's just a book about Magnus and Alec, and that is all we needed in our lives from Cassandra Clare. And then you've got the illustrated history of all the Shadowhunters and denizens of Downworld in here. I also kept the pin from Fairy Loot there as well. The little horse figure here is supposed to be James's horse from Chain of Gold, or Will's horse from Infernal Devices, whose name currently escapes me. So this is the second Shadowhunters shelf, complete with the Folk of Air series, which I still haven't read. So on the side, we just have what I call the Shadowhunter novellas, even though they're 600-700 pages long. Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy follow Simon in his time at the Shadowhunter Academy. This one I absolutely loved because it was very different from any other Shadowhunters book, and it was just kind of like a nice break from the main story. Then you have the series that started it all, the Mortal Instruments series, which I have read. Ghosts from the Shadow Market is probably my favourite of the Shadowhunter novellas because we follow Jem on his like quest around the world to find like a lost Herringdale. Candle, because I'm obsessed with candles, and this is supposed to be the other one of the horses from the Infernal Devices series. So here we have the third and final Shadowhunter shelf slash other random books that I could fit in this little square here. So we've got the Dark Artifices series here, and this is the Lord of Shadows Rune edition. The Handbook of Chinese Mythology is also up here as well. I'm currently writing a film based around Chinese mythology, so that's why I have this here. It's just like a quick grab so I can do some referencing while I'm writing the film. The Magisterium series here, I put it with the Shadowhunters books because Cassie Clare, Holly Black. Cassie Clare, Holly Black's also over there, so that kind of just ties together. And the Poppy War, which I'm doing a buddy read for, and I haven't actually finished it yet. I think I'm on the last third of the book. And here I do have the Elemental Coaster set from the Fairy Loot box. So this shelf here is probably like my favorite shelf, mainly because it's got my Pan's Labyrinth book here. Pan's Labyrinth is my favorite film of all time, and the book had me in absolute tears when I finished it. This little key is actually like a gift from my brother's wedding, but I keep it next to the Pan's Labyrinth book because it's like the key Ophelia has to get from the frog under the tree. The little fawn here, pop figure, I got him from Comic-Con. I think he was an exclusive. This is also where my Witcher medallion lives when I'm not wearing it. The Witcher book series at the back, and these are the kind of weird old covers. So they kind of look like this. Here I've got some Geralt artwork done by an independent artist at Comic-Con, and then this little thing I actually made for my Witcher film. Yes, I'm making a Witcher film. It's actually a vial of black blood. All you need is water and charcoal capsules, and I thought I'd make a little vial of black blood to put on the shelf, so that lives there. At the bottom you have the World of the Witcher video game compendium, to be read YA fantasy shelf. So we've got Forest of Souls, which I have read and I absolutely loved. Yes, video review coming out on this soon. A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the only Hunger Games book I own. I don't own the original trilogy, even though I really should. Girls of Storm and Shadow and Girls of Paper and Fire, which I have read. I adored both of them, although I do believe Paper and Fire was better than Storm and Shadow. The Six of Crows duology here, and this is called the Shadow and Bone trilogy, also by Leigh Bardugo. Haven't read any of these yet. Here we have an old classics edition of Bram Stoker's Dracula, Girl Serpent Thorn, which I have read and really enjoyed. This is great if you want to learn about Persian mythology. We have Children of Blood and Bone, which I'm hoping to get read for my August TBR. Shielded as well is also on my TBR, but for next month. And then here we have Baby from Supernatural, Dean's car from Supernatural. Again, I got this in a loot crate. We have a little Crowley pop figure here because he's my favorite character from Supernatural. This is the Desert Dreams candle from the first Fairy Loot box I ever got. So that sits with Girl Serpent Thorn and Crowley just on top of it there with the car. And the tarot cards as well, the Darker Shade of Magic tarot cards. This shelf started as the House of Mass and Sass shelf, but as my collection grew, I had to put different books on here. So right at the back, you've got the Throne of Glass series. This is a series I absolutely love, and I just need to get the last book of it. It's the Queens of Fenber, 3 Dark Crowns, 1 Dark Throne, 2 Dark Reigns. The first Crescent City series here. This is House of Earth and Blood. Loved this. Right at the front, you've got the Priory of the Orange Tree. This is the best book I've read in 2020 so far, and I do absolutely highly recommend this to anyone who loves epic fantasy with hard magic systems, dragons, different storylines. Like, we follow different characters spread out across like an entire world. Just underneath it, you've got Sun Tzu, The Art of War, Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell. And naturally, because this is the sort of House of Mass and Sass shelf, I do have the Throne of Glass tarot cards on here. I do love Rowan's tarot card. I think that's really nice. This shelf is probably one of my absolute faves. It's my Star Wars shelf. Aftermath here, which is part of the Journey to the Force Awakens saga. These are essential for just any Star Wars fan, really. These are just the original trilogy of films in book form, like in novel form. And then I do have this little, I don't even know what to call this, like Chewbacca in sausage form. This little Yoda figure.
The way of the Force.
Yeah, so he plays like the Star Wars theme and says stuff. Yeah, okay, shush. Baby Yoda, who's also a bobblehead. My favorite Star Wars book of all time is Lost Stars. This is brilliant, highly recommend it. And these are just little novels. These are also part of the Journey to Star Wars The Force Awakens saga, but I haven't read these yet. William Shakespeare's Star Wars, hilarious, highly recommend. And Rogue One in novel form as well. And up here we do have a little Yoda who's also a bobblehead. I think all my Star Wars pop figures are bobbleheads. Here we have the movie poster, which a friend saved me from the OD Canadian. I think this is the poster for Rise of Skywalker. I really did not enjoy that film in the slightest, but the poster's really cool. This is the first of my comic book shelves. Oh, Harley's fallen over. I love this. It's just like an egg-shaped Joker. These are all my DC comic books. Batman the Killing Joke is my favorite comic book of all time. It's absolutely brilliant. Joker by Brian Azzarello is also absolutely fantastic. So then we have Joker, Death of the Family, Suicide Squad, Basilisk Rising, New Suicide Squad, Freedom, Monsters, Pure Insanity. Then Harley Quinn got her own series. So we've got Harley Quinn, The Joker's Last Laugh, Harley Quinn, Kiss Kiss Bang Stab, Harley Quinn, Power Outrage, Harley Quinn, Hot in the City, and Before Watchmen as well. This is my manga shelf. First we have the Assassination Classroom manga up to volume 7. This is probably like one of my favorite manga series of all time. It's a slice of life and it stands for Living Dining Kitchen, and it's just about 2 high school students in Japan trying to live together without getting caught. Next we have Fairy Tail S, and I didn't realize that this manga was the anime OVAs. Fairy Tail Zero gives you the backstory of how the guild was started and how Mavis, their first master, learnt how to use her magic. And then here we have Death Note Black Edition, and this contains volume 1 and 2. Okay, so now that they're moved out the way, this is kind of like what the shelf used to look like before I got that pile in the front. Here we have a little Urza Scarlet pop figure. Down here we have the Fairy Girls series. Then I've got the first 10 volumes of the manga. Up here we have Blue Exorcist volume 1 and 2. Really enjoyed those. This isn't actually manga, these are actual novels. So they're basically just a collection of short stories set in the world of the ancient Magus Bride, and it follows Chisei here, our main character, and Elias, our like other main character, who is a mage, and so is Chisei. High Night Memories. This is Shoto Aizawa, or Mr. Aizawa, or Eraserhead from the My Hero series. I love the My Hero series, it is absolutely incredible. This is the series that started my manga and anime obsession. I watched Black Butler, and that was the first anime series that I ever watched. I've got up to volume 6 and I've read up to volume 3, so I just need to finish these. Some of the Sharingan forms from Naruto. Down here I've got again the Wings of Freedom from Attack on Titan, the Contract from Black Butler, the one that CL has in his eye, and here I do have Sebastian's pocket watch from Black Butler. This is my Game of Thrones shelf, if you couldn't tell. So starting at the top, we have A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and I'm really hoping George R.R. Martin actually like continues this series, because I really enjoyed this book. Then you have the main Game of Thrones series, and this one is Fire and Blood, which is also during the reign of the Targaryens. And then here we've just got the last 2 of Song of Ice and Fire series. We've got a little Daenerys down here with a little dragon, which was just adorable really. And then over here we do have a little Drogon. Marvel comic book shelf. This is a tin from We Hunt the Flame, which I got in my first Fairy Loot box. Deadpool vs Carnage, which is fantastic. World War Hulk and Planet Hulk are probably like 2 of my favorite Marvel comic books of all time. Infinity volume 1 and 2, Fear Itself, Civil War 2, Deadpool the Complete Collection. This was actually a gift from a friend of mine. Deadpool Classic, Deadpool Corpse. If you know anything about Deadpool Corpse, you'll know how funny this comic book is. Doctor Strange, The Way of the Weird, Wolverine, Old Man Logan, The Last Ronin, Doctor Strange, Strange Origin, Doctor Strange, The Last Days of Magic, and here, Death of Wolverine. Well, that's not very aesthetic. There we go, much better. concludes today's tour. I hope you guys had fun exploring my shelves with me. If you have any questions about any of the items or any of the books on the shelves, drop a comment below and I will do my best to answer it. Stay safe everybody, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye!